Okay, this hat is a Dairy Queen, and it's a chain of burger joints, and they sell really low grade ice cream. Dairy Queen. Okay, so if I'm the Dairy Queen, why does it always default to me being doing gay jokes or something? I mean, the Dairy Queen. Hi, I'm the Dairy Queen. Oh, would you like kitties? I'm gonna get you maple walnut. Would you like a sundae? A banana split? What could I get you today? Creepy, creepy. The Dairy Queen. What else can we talk about the Dairy Queen? Well, what can you do with dairy products from a sexual point of view? Immediately, I think of that canned whipped cream. You finger the nozzle and it just goes. You can stick that foam, in your armpits or something, and then just bury your nose in your armpits. Oh, I love the aroma. Dairy Queen. What else can we say? We gotta move on. Okay, this is Seattle Seahawks, Seahawks football, NFL. What can we talk about gays in the NFL? There was a big stink. I don't know. It seemed like yesterday, but maybe it was 5 years ago, when they were drafting an openly gay black man, and it turned out he wasn't good enough to play. I've got a hair hanging down here. So he ended up going to the Canadian Football League, and he really didn't play very well then. And then he just sort of became the guy who got drafted by the NFL. And oh, by the way, he was gay. Um, I don't know. There was somebody else who told me we were at a very expensive restaurant that served nothing but really lousy food, and it took an hour and a half to get there. The bill was astronomical. I almost walked out. I should have. Next time I will. But I was told by this particular person, who is really dirty. He's really dirty. He's been known way back for just being dirty, knowing everything. And if it wasn't true, well, he'd convince you it was true. He told me a third of the people in the NFL are actively pursuing homosexual relationships. Why is that? Well, because they're gym bunnies. And anybody knows that these big muscle bound dudes at the gym are always preening. They're always going like, I don't have much muscles at all. I'm very skinny. But, they're always going like, oh, I got to do my stretch. Oh, or, they're lifting weights and, oh, I'm huge. And they're lifting it. I'm huge. And they're always looking at each other. They're always winking at each other. Oh, that was a good rep. Let's do another rep. And then they go into the men's locker room and say, Bill's the guy. Bill, reach down there into my pack sack and get me my ointment. They like to put ointments all over themselves. Ointment. They're always getting all banged up in the NFL, and they're always on Percocets. They call them perks. I need something to perk me up, doc. Give me some on Percocets. So they get hooked on this stuff because they don't realize that it's based on opium or heroin. So they're doing perks. I need something to perk me up, doc. I got to play a big game on Monday night. It's nationally televised, and I don't want to suck. So I pop about 10 perks during the day. And, well, back in high school, the guys were 17, and they weren't using perks. In those days, they were using rye whiskey. They would get all jacked up on rye whiskey, and then, anybody who knows rye whiskey knows that certain people, when they drink rye whiskey, it brings out the inner wolf. And so, the aggression will come out when you're drinking rye whiskey. I don't know how they did it, though, because, I have one or two rye whiskeys, and I can't get off the floor. It's so damn strong. But what else can we talk about? I don't know. Where else can we go with this? I got to change hats. Now, this here hat is Winnipeg Jets, the NHL team, and they're in Winnipeg, Manitoba. What's Winnipeg known for? Portage and Main. Those are the two main streets downtown that crisscross downtown. It's known as the coldest, windiest place north of Chicago. How much colder is it than Chicago? Chicago's like Miami compared to Winnipeg. Winnipeg gets a deep freeze. The only place colder than Winnipeg is Edmonton. Edmonton's actually further north than Winnipeg. But Winnipeg is it's on the prairie and it's flat as a pancake. It's so flat that when the water rains down, it's got nowhere to flow. You know, there's no slope on the land at all for the water to drain. So it just sits there. And what does stagnant water sitting there do? Well, it's a perfect home for mosquitoes. So Winnipeg is famous for mosquitoes. All the prairie surrounding the city is where they breed, and then a light wind comes up and it just blows the clouds of mosquitoes into Winnipeg. Winnipeg was famous, I suppose it was maybe the early 1960s for spraying DDT throughout. They would fog the whole city to try and kill the mosquitoes. Back in those days, they didn't know that DDT was toxic to all the other animal life. They just sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it. And the people got so used to the city being sprayed, the Canadian government wanted to make some quick cash. So they sold out the city of Winnipeg to the United States Air Force. And the United States Air Force was working on, they wanted to test things like poison gas being sprayed by airplanes and nuclear fallout and bioterrorism, spreading like anthrax by air. So what did they do? Well, they used to fly right over. Well, they had a base in the Dakotas. It was ICBMs and B-52s in North Dakota and South Dakota. So this was just had to fly north. Just due north of North Dakota is Manitoba and Winnipeg. So they would just load up their B-52s full of all kinds of shit. I don't know what they were using to crop dusters maybe, but they would fly north and then they would see the only really big city in the middle of Manitoba was Winnipeg, and that's where they would go. And that was the origination of chemtrailing. They would just fly right over Winnipeg and spray whatever the hell they wanted to spray. It could have been radioactive, and then they would fly over later with some kind of a camera that would pick up the radioactivity, and they would see where it spread. So what happened in Winnipeg? I don't know. They're very hardy people in Winnipeg. They stand a very long, cold winter, and I don't know. I did go to a Grey Cup, which is the Canadian version of the Super Bowl in Winnipeg one time. And it was late fall. It was so cold, I was hungover because we've been out drinking the night before. I didn't really have a lot of energy. And it must have been 20 below outside with the wind. And some of my friends were bundling up to go because it was an outdoor stadium. Could you imagine 20 below and it's an outdoor stadium? Yeah, it's Winnipeg. But I decided, no, I'm going to stay here and drink water and maybe watch. No, I think I fell asleep in front of the television. But Winnipeg. The Blue Bombers is the name of the CFL team. And what else? Well, the North End is known as being the rough part of town. It's very ethnic. Winnipeg you're either one of two ethnicities. You're either from Ukraine, you're Ukrainian, or you're what these days they call First Nations. For everybody else, that means Indian, North American Indian. So what else do you know? Oh, cheap drinks. Canada is notorious for very expensive alcohol prices, beer and booze, except in certain places. And Winnipeg was known as a place where you could go and get very cheap drinks for Canadian prices, and so cheap that they would be comparable to pretty cheap even in the United States, which is known for dirt cheap drinks. Now, another northern city known for cheap drinks, a little town on Lake Superior called Superior, Wisconsin. Superior, Wisconsin has got the cheapest drinks outside of Mexico. No, scratch that. They're cheaper than Mexico. Now, this was quite some years ago, let's say when I was 25. My friends and I would go to Superior, Wisconsin, and it was just a dive bar after dive bar. But it was unbelievable because they had at Schultz's Bar, all you could drink draft beer served in glasses, all you could drink for 10 cents, a dime to get drunk. I stopped going because I couldn't stand the hangovers that, this draft beer was. It would get you drunk, but the hangover was unbelievable. So I stopped going on these road trips to Superior. But my buddy said eventually they had to raise the price of the draft. They raised it to $1. All you could drink for $1 because they had too many alcoholics coming in for the dime piss up. Superior, Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin is famous for brewing beer, suds. Milwaukee is famous for breweries, and the baseball team is the Milwaukee Brewers. That's where they get the name from. Milwaukee has got more bars than any other city I've ever been to. In residential neighborhoods, you walk down to residential neighborhoods, and every time there's a cross street, you've got at least 2 corner bars. 2, 3, or even 4 bars on the cross street in a residential neighborhood. And does it promote alcoholism? Probably. But I imagine it's also good for preventing drunk driving because, you don't have to drive anywhere. You just have to stumble down to the corner and there's your pub. So maybe they are really a big advancement on other cities. The most disgusting city I was ever in, San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, Texas, also known as Fat City. The fattest people on the planet live in San Antonio, Texas. Everything is drive-through. The city is nothing but freeway with loops and ramps and overpasses. And downtown, they've got an artificial canal where they pump water through, and then they got to put bleach in it to bleach it out and disinfect it, and then they put light blue dye in it to make it look like the ocean. And that's the premium real estate. So you can go down there to the canal through downtown San Antonio and pretend that it's the ocean or something, Chicago River. They used to dye the Chicago River green for St. Paddy's Day. But San Antonio, you could sit out in the restaurants and look at the beautiful canal that went down through the center of town. Anywhere in Texas, I'm told, it's very dangerous because everyone has got a pistol in their glove box. Saturday night, can you imagine people getting all pissed up in downtown Dallas and then deciding to reenact the assassination of JFK outside the Texas Book Depository? Blam, blam, blam. Well, does it make it safer for you? I don't know. I mean, body armor these days. I mean, the old days it was Kevlar. These days I hear it's hemp. Hemp, I was told today on Instagram, is 10 times stronger than steel. I don't know. Maybe Kevlar, maybe it's 10 times stronger than steel. I'm not sure. But hemp, so as people are using hemp like in the old days, they used to make the Chevy Corvette out of fiberglass. Now they're making a fiber hemp, and they made an airplane out of hemp. It looks fiberglass. What else can I talk about? Do you notice how men get hair in weird places? And they get hairs coming out of their ears and out of their noses. Hairy backs. And some men are whistle clean. They don't have hair one. They can't even grow anything more than a few little stray hairs down here, and the rest of their body, they look like a woman. And in the 1970s, very hirsute men, hairy means hirsute, were de rigueur, which means, you should have 3 day scruff and a cheesy big Mexican mustache, big and thick, and big curly hair. And if you were black, you had to have an afro. An afro would be way out here. And then if you had a beard to match, your face, you could see your eyes and a little bit of your cheeks. But then you had hair all the way around here. But that was 1970s. And all the porn stars in the 1970s were very hairy. Hedgehog, what was his name? Ron Jeremy. He was really hairy. And then there was kind of a blowback on that after the 1970s. And in the 1980s, if you go back and you look at all the music videos, they got people who totally smooth skinned. They call them, in the gay community, they call them twinks. Zero body hair, zero hair on their legs, zero hair anywhere. And then they had kind of, do you remember Farrah Fawcett Major? She was a pinup girl, and she had huge hair, and that was the kind of hair that these twinks had in all those 80s music videos. When music videos first came out, it was this. They didn't use drums in those days. They had drums in the 1970s, and then electronic drums came in. So all of the drum beats in the 1980s were electronic drums. If you listen to them now, you go, fuck, I don't want to listen to that shit. But that was what they all used. And so it was twinkie men, zero body hair, big hair on their heads. And they all kind of imitated David Bowie when David Bowie was doing, what was his name? Iggy Stardust or whatever. They all were trying to play people from Mars or something. They really had this kind of. They would wear uniforms that looked like they were not really NASA, and not really Star Trek. They just looked like they were trying to get off a spaceship or something. And I don't know what else to tell you. I hesitate to do 80s songs at karaoke. I went out last night and I did do an 80s song, a George Michael song, Careless Whisper, and I really didn't do a good job of it at all. Sometimes I sing it well, and my voice it wasn't warmed up, I suppose. I don't know. I was really unhappy with that version. And the best song I did, I had to go to another bar, because sometimes when you're doing karaoke, and if you've done 4 songs and you don't like any of them, well, mostly it was because of the sound at this bar. They had 2 speakers, and they had them side by side in a corner. Instead of putting the 2 speakers apart, putting the singer in between the speakers, no, they had 2 speakers in the corner to the far right of the singer. So, and they had no stage monitor, so it was hard to hear yourself. The music was muddy, and a lot of the versions of the songs had too many background singers. I don't like when you're doing karaoke and the background singers and the pre-recorded singers are singing the whole song. What's the point of you singing? You should just put that song on and let the background. It's just a cover version of somebody's song. It's not karaoke. It was horrible. The sound was horrible, and so I left and I went to another place, and the sound was way better, way better. And the best song that I did of the night was Weezer's Hash Pipe. A lot of people don't like singing with me because I'll sing very high falsetto and very low, like Waylon Jennings. And they don't like me to do that because it shows them up. It shows them that they don't have that vocal range, and then they get all pissy because they don't, want to be shown up on stage. So I usually hope they'll go away and not sing with me anymore. And Hash Pipe's one of those kind of songs where, it starts off very high and and then it quickly goes back to a mid-tone. It's about homosexual prostitutes in Hollywood, California. The only reason that they do it is because they're high on hashish, and they'll do anything as long as they got more money to buy hash, and that's what they do is they sell themselves to other men. I imagine Hollywood is known for pretty boys, and everyone knows that those Hollywood movie stars actors will be gay for pay or play for gay or whatever. But that's what the song is about. Hash pipe is all about someone who has cooties. It's like they've got, what do you call those cooties? They're not thrips, that's on plants. The cooties that you get. And then you have to go to the drugstore and get special shampoo to get rid of it's like lice, but it's not lice. But that's what the song says, don't mind my cooties. I go out of my mind or something. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, what else have I got for you? I don't really know what to tell you about this hat. I used to use this for a certain character who won't come back. And it sounds kind of Swedish. I would say Fisker Hedon is Swedes. Now, Swedish erotica was famous because Swedes are also hairless, but they're very muscular. Very, very muscular, no hair, and blonde. And so it's famous for blacks on blondes. Put it together, and that's Swedish erotica. Is there anything particular? But, well, I don't know. Why don't you just see if you can find some Swedish erotica, blacks on blondes. What else have I got? Okay, this is back to Winnipeg. What else is Winnipeg going to tell us? Well, it was famous for flooding. The Red River and the Assiniboine River flow through Winnipeg. And, they get a lot of snow in the prairies. And these rivers flow very slow because there's not much tilt on the land at all. They get ice jams. Ice gets all jammed up, and then the water backs up behind the ice. And the city used to flood. What does that have to do with anything? Well, what else is famous for flooding? Well, if you're underwater, it means you can't, your financing has gone, you can't make your financing on your house or on your car. That's underwater, which is flooding. Floods are when you've got your jeans. Can you see that? Your jeans are up too high. Those are called floods. And Winnipeg built a big diversionary ditch so that they don't get floods in the city anymore. Does it work? I think it does work. I don't know. Why would you ever go to Winnipeg? Winnipeg has the worst roads because there's so much frost. It heaves the roads. So if you go in the summertime to Winnipeg, the asphalt is all crumbly and it's jammed with cars. It is so jammed. I don't really want to go to Winnipeg ever again. Besides, the mosquitoes are back because they no longer spray the DDT. If we were going to consider a place I would like, I really want to go to Palm Springs, California, because it's close to the national park there, Death Valley. It's got some very interesting places I'd like to tour. And Palm Springs itself, I don't think I would stay in Palm Springs. It's noted as a... why are there so many homosexuals in Palm Springs? Well, it was known as the Dinah Shore. Dinah Shore in the 1950s and 60s was a popular celebrity and a closet lesbian. So apparently the lesbians started going, and then as soon as any of the queers started hearing where the lesbians were going, they had to go sniff it out. And then they found out it was hot. and they could have pool parties. So, if you don't go to Palm Springs, if you don't want to go and see a bunch of fat whales, those are very fat white male homosexuals, naked, frolicking in the pool. And the pools have got fountains, water fountains spraying up, and then they've got the colored lights that shine in underneath the water in the pool or at the fountain. And then you've got, someone who's 5'7" and 275 pounds, a white whale, or they could be even taller, 6'3" and 400 pounds. Why are there so many fat homosexuals in the pool? Because they drink. They drink too much hard liquor. If you go to a gay bar, and there's not many gay bars in the cities left anymore, if you go to the gay bar, the first thing you'll notice is that after 10 o'clock p.m., there's not a sober person in the bar. Maybe they are stinking drunk. Well, I mean, you're thinking that they're dancing with one another on the dance floor. No, they're holding one another up in a mosh pit because that's the only way they can stand up because they're so stinky drunk. Why do gay men get stinky drunk? It's because they can't find romance. Everyone knows that queers are the pickiest people on earth. And they're snobby. They ignore the straight community altogether. It's they don't even care. It's like they've got their own community, so they don't want anything to do with straights, and they're not interested in anything to do with straight world. But in the gay world, there's a pecking order, and they're very arrogant and snobby, especially snobby. So snobby that well, I don't know. It's just disgusting. So what happens is that by age 28, after they've had 10 years in the bars, gay men become very jaded, and then they become like Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde was a famous Hollywood comic, closet homosexual, but it was kind of an open secret. And he was always in the middle square of the Hollywood Squares, which was a daytime game show that everybody watched. And he was known for his hard drinking and his wisecracks. He was very funny. He was on Bewitched. He played Warlock, the uncle to Samantha, who was a witch. And he had this snide, laughing grin all the time. But in Hollywood, he was known for his heavy drinking. And, when he was a middle-aged man, when he was 40, he was always looking for the underage, the 17-year-olds that were walking around looking to sell themselves to rich Hollywood actors. And I don't know if he ever, I shouldn't say 17. Let's make him 21. Okay, let's make him 21 so at least we're not smirching him. But the whole point was that older, past 28 homosexuals are so jaded because they know what other homosexuals are all about. And they know there's no such thing as a romance. It's always just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And Paul Lynde was known for getting stinking drunk at Hollywood and Vine. This was long before the Viper Room was there. And I'm standing there and going, "Sweetie, sweetie, come over here and give Uncle Paul a kiss," or something like this. But why do I pick on the homosexual committee? Well, the homosexual committee is trying to convert the planet to their way of life. What way of life is that? Well, other than alcoholism, it's mostly being blasé. Donald Trump could be sending nuclear ICBMs over the North Pole to Russia to bomb Moscow, and the gays would say, "Oh, nothing new, sweetie. It's just the straight people playing with their..." Well, they would always say the reason that Donald Trump has got these ICBMs in the first place is that they look like penises, big, tall penises. And it was a big, a farting match. Who's got the biggest fart? Who's got the biggest penis? Who's got the biggest ICBM? Intercontinental ballistic missiles full of a big payload. It sounds very sexual. Well, it is. If you're an old man and you're, 85 and you're playing at being the president or something, you can't get it up anymore. So you have to have other ways of showing off your virility. And, that was why they invented these missiles in the first place. It's penis envy. And homosexuals know all about penis envy because they're really bored with penises. By the time they're even 20, they've seen so many penises. That's why they go into a lot of service work. It's mostly because they've seen it all and they're jaded by, I said 28, but even at 20, they're very jaded. And they know that a lot of the married men like to look at young, gay, homosexual men. Is it true? I saw it the other day. There's something about the safety of being married to a woman that allows these men to look and gawk. In the old days when they were mean-spirited, they would say, look at that faggot. But these days, it's not so much. It's more like they'll buy the young homosexual a drink at the bar. And then they'll talk about, my girlfriend does this, that, and the next thing, or my wife. That'll be the conversation. But the whole time, I'm watching this thing going on because it's just down the bar from me. I like to watch what goes on in the bar. And the whole time, the ostensibly straight man with the girlfriend or the wife is just Lady Gaga over this young homosexual. What is going on? Why, if you are a straight man with a relationship with a woman, do you go to a bar by yourself and buy drinks for the young homosexual? Recent statistics say only 3% of the population is gay. But they also said, with a little asterisk, it's very hard to get accurate numbers because a lot of men who have sex with other men will not self-report it. I don't know. There seems to be a lingering stigma around it, or I don't know. In the Spanish countries in Latin America, it's they call it a double life. All the men are homosexual, but they have wives or girlfriends. So it's like in public, they're all Catholic countries. So in Catholicism frowns on homosexuality. So they have their official marriages, but they have private clubs everywhere. And private clubs are, I guess, the women go with the women and the men go with the men. Double lives. How do I know this? I knew a Colombian who kept telling me all about what was going on in Colombia. And it's strange that even in small towns in places like Finland, if you go to the gay club, what do you find? In Finland, in the gay club? Now, Finnish people are notoriously blonde, bleached out blonde. And what else do you see there? You'll see young Latin men dancing with one another in the bars. Gay bars? Well, any bar. Why is it Latino men spend so much time with other Latino men in the bar? I don't know. I think it's all, is it penis envy or, penis comparison charts? There's nothing worse than when, I don't know, a 12 or 13-year-old version of me starts looking into, is it the right size, So, and, you try and figure it out when you're, very early teenager, is it, and there in the Hollywood movies, they used to talk about this. There was, some of these teen movies where they would, be charting the growth of their body parts. And in the end, what does it mean? Well, someone was telling me a leprechaun joke, and the leprechaun had the biggest dick around, and it just fell off the rails. But why would small people have big dicks? You would think everything would be proportional. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Where can I go from this? Okay, we're going to go back. And this is a Budweiser. So if you're drinking Budweiser, what happens is you get really bad breath. Beechwood aged Budweiser gives you terrible breath, very dry skin. It'll make your nose turn red, and you'll get a fat beer belly. I always wonder why people go to see these professional sports, because the people playing the sports are completely fit, top athletes, and the people in the stands are drinking all kinds of Budweiser. And are they getting to look like their heroes? No, they're getting fatter and fatter and fatter. It's very expensive to go to these professional sports. I don't, you can watch it on TV for free, and you can drink beer at home if you have to. But why go and spend, I don't know, $200 on a cheap seat or something? I've lost the plot here. Now, another kind of beer that comes from Nova Scotia, I don't know where Nova Scotia is, it's Eastern Canada, north of Vermont, or no, north of Maine. And Moosehead beer is brewed there. What do we know about Halifax? Nothing. It's got a lousy climate. It's very, I don't know. How do I know it's lousy? Because it's kind of snow belt. It's gets very snowy. They get a lot of moisture off the ocean. I don't know why I brought it up. What else can I tell you about Mooseheads? Nothing at all. Am I done? We're going back to the Dairy Queen. Okay, if you go to the Dairy Queen, you could get a dipped. It's like if you go to McDonald's, I get a McDonald's ice cream cone. It's that kind of ice cream that comes out of the machine. And then they take that and then they dunk it in liquid chocolate. So you can get a dipped chocolate cone. I don't know. What else can you talk about Dairy Queens? Well, cows have got big udders, and, queens have got udders. I can't really talk about my friend who doesn't like anything to do with milk. He calls it mucilage. He said milk is nothing but mucilage, and mucilage is kind of like slime. If you get like lettuce. If you get lettuce and it's gone bad and it gets all wilted and then it gets kind of very wet, and if you let it sit, it becomes kind of slimy. That's what I'm talking about. That milk is mucilage, and it's coming from the milk is coming from the udders, and how am I supposed to put this in words? But the breasts of a mammal have actually evolved from sweat glands. So milk is a specialized form of sweat. And, this particular person apparently doesn't like anything to do with excreted products from the skin. Like some people, if they've been drinking bourbon, the next day when they go to work, there's a bad smell in the room, and it's because the bourbon is coming out through their pores. They're sweaty and, very sweaty, and you're constantly going to the bathroom to wet their face. And, there's no way you can get enough water back in your system after you've been drinking bourbon. It's very drying. The alcohol just sucks all the water content out of your body. So you're nothing worse than a horrible hangover. Don't drink alcohol. Don't drink alcohol. Okay, we're going back to the Jets. Okay, now this one is, I don't know why they call Winnipeg hockey team the Jets, because there's no military base in Manitoba. Outside of Manitoba, there's an army base for the Canadian Army, Gimli, Manitoba, but there's no Air Force in Manitoba at all. So why did they call the TV show Winnipeg Jets? I'll have to wait here for 2 weeks because there's no answer. There is no reason to call your hockey team in Winnipeg the Jets. The nearest military base for Jets is Cold Lake, Alberta, which is north of Edmonton. It is so far away. Cold Lake is like next to almost as close to well, head towards Alaska, north to Alaska, and that's Cold Lake. So there's nothing to do with Jets in Winnipeg or Manitoba at all. It's just another blithering idiot. I gotta go.